I introduce myself? I'm Watson Pritchard. In just a minute, I'll show you the only really haunted house in the world. Since it was built a century ago, 7 people, including my brother, have been murdered in it. Since then, I've owned the house. I've only spent one night there, and when they found me in the morning, I was almost dead.
I'm Frederick Lauren, and I've rented the house on Haunted Hill tonight so that my wife can give a party. A haunted house party. She's so amusing. There'll be food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited. If any of you will spend the next 12 hours in this house, I'll give you each $10,000, or your next of kin in case you don't survive. Ah, but here come our other guests. It was my wife's idea to have our guests come in funeral cars. She's so amusing. Her sense of humor is, shall we say, original. I dreamed up the hearse. It's empty now, but after a night in the house on Haunted Hill, who knows? This is Lance Schroeder, a test pilot, so no doubt a brave man. But don't you think you can be much braver if you're paid for it? And I happen to know that Lance needs the $10,000 I'll give him, if he's brave enough to stay all night. This is Ruth Bridges. You've no doubt read her column in the newspapers. She says her reason for coming to the party is to write a feature article on ghosts. She's also desperate for money, gambles. You've already met Watson Pritchard, a man living in mortal fear of a house, and yet he is risking his life to spend another night here. I wonder why. He says for money. This is Dr. David Trent, a psychiatrist. He claims that my ghost will help his work on hysteria. But don't you see a little touch of greed there around the mouth and eyes? This is Nora Manning. I picked her from the thousands of people who work for me because she needed the $10,000 more than most. Supports her whole family. Isn't she pretty? The party's starting now, and you have until midnight to find the house on Haunted Hill.
everybody?
It isn't a very warm welcome, is it?
Only the ghosts in this house are glad we're here.
Are we all strangers to each other? Don't you two know each other?
I'm afraid I don't even know your name.
I'm Nora Manning.
Lance Schroeder.
Is Frederick Lauren a friend of yours?
I've heard of him, but I've never met him.
I work for one of his companies, but I've never seen him.
I've never met the man either. Just a phone call. Do you know him?
No,
Well, then you're the only one of us who does.
I don't know him. All the details about renting the house were done by mail.
He's quite wealthy, isn't he?
Millions.
And 5 wives, I believe.
4, I think, so far.
A $50,000 party for only 5 people is a little steep, even for a millionaire.
Well, if I were going to haunt anybody, this would certainly be the house I'd do it in.
Who closed the door?
This thing's made of solid steel.
Annabelle, our guests are here, unfortunately still alive. Is your face on yet?
Dust and dirt everywhere, and the water barely trickles. Couldn't you have had the place cleaned?
Atmosphere, darling. You know how ghosts are. They never tidy up. And that's a very fetching outfit, but hardly suitable for a party.
I'm not going to the party.
The spend-the-night ghost party was your idea, remember? Since it's going to cost me $50,000, I want you to have fun.
The party was my idea until you invited all the guests. Why all these strangers? Why none of our friends?
Friends? Do we have any friends?
No, your jealousy took care of that.
I had a reason for inviting each guest. I wanted kind of a cross-section. From psychiatrist to typist, and from drunk to jet pilot. They share one thing. They all need money. Now let's see if they're brave enough to earn it.
And you call this a party?
Could be.
Why do you always do that? It spoils the champagne.
It might explode.
Never does.
Would you guarantee that?
That isn't funny, Frederick.
Make a good headline. Playboy kills wife with champagne cork. Will you join me?
No, thank you.
Just a sip might improve your humor.
My humor is fine, thanks. And I haven't poisoned it.
It's always good to know that. Have some. You'll enjoy the party more. Go on.
Your trust is so touching. And I'm not going to the party.
Of all my wives, you're the least agreeable.
But still alive.
Would you go away for $1 million tax-free? You want it all, don't you?
I deserve it all. Your jealousy isn't tax-free, and your possessiveness is maddening.
If ever a man had grounds for divorce,
But can't prove them.
the time will come. You'll slip up one of these days,
Think so?
if I live long enough. You remember the fun we had when you poisoned me?
Something you ate, the doctor said.
Yes, arsenic on the rocks. Annabelle, you'd do it again if you thought you could get away with it, wouldn't you?
Darling, what makes you think that?
Something about you. I hear that hanging is very uncomfortable, in case you get any more ideas. Now, don't let the ghosts and the ghouls disturb you, darling.
Darling, The only ghoul in the house is you.
And don't sit up all night thinking of ways to get rid of me. It makes wrinkles.
This is what she used on my brother and her sister. Hacked them to pieces. We found parts of the bodies all over the house, in places you wouldn't think. The funny thing is the heads have never been found. Hands and feet and things like that. But no heads.
The wife, probably in a rage, threatened her husband with a knife and then, carried away by hysteria, took a swing at him and simply went on from there.
She certainly went on. How many people did she kill, Mr. Pritchard?
Only two. Her husband and her sister. No one else was here.
So there are two loose heads just floating around in here somewhere?
You can hear them at night. They whisper to each other and then cry.
Since our host isn't here, would anyone care to mix me a drink?
Certainly. What will you have?
Good evening. I'm your host, Richard-Lael. Since we're all strangers to each other, let's get acquainted with a drink, shall we?
Mr. Lauren, I advise you to call this party off now. The ghosts are already moving, and that's a bad sign.
Let me apologize for my wife. She'll join us later. What do you have?
Scotch and.
Doctor?
I'll have the same.
Now, before the party begins, let's go over the details. The caretakers will leave at midnight, locking us in here until they come back in the morning. Once the door is locked, there's no way out. The windows have bars that a jail would be proud of, and the only door to the outside locks like a vault. There's no electricity, no phone, no one within miles, so no way to call for help.
Like a coffin.
So if any of you decide not to stay for the party, you must let me know before midnight. Of course, if you leave, I shan't be able to pay you anything.
I'm interested in your reasons for this, party. Aside from the pleasant company.
Ghosts, Doctor. I think everyone wonders what they would do if they saw a ghost. And now my wife has given us all the opportunity to find out.
Amusing. Ghosts, etc., being only creations of hysteria, your party should be a success.
Well, Pritchard here promises us genuine ghosts.
7 now. Maybe more before morning.
That's cheerful.
4 men have been murdered in this house. And 3 women.
You planned your party very well, Mr. Lauren. 4 of us are men, 3 are women. A ghost for everybody.
Well, Pritchard, why don't you take us on a tour through the house and let's see what happens, huh?
See that stain? Blood. A young girl was killed here. And whatever got her wasn't human. Don't stand there.
What do you mean? Where?
It's too late. They've marked you.
Ridiculous. The roof probably leaks.
Oh, that must be what it is. Who would want to haunt me?
I would say any self-respecting male ghost.
I hope it doesn't come back.
Well, Mr. Pritchard, you're the life of the party.
He hasn't even started yet. Wasn't there a man who threw his wife into a wine vat or something?
That was in the cellar. There's been a murder almost every place in this house. All this belonged to a Mr. Norton, who didn't die here. He was electrocuted later. Mr. Norton did a good deal of experimenting with wines, but his wife didn't think it was any good. So he filled the vat with acid and threw her in. She was supposed to stay down. but the bones came up. It's a funny thing, but none of the murders here were just ordinary. Just shooting or stabbing. They've all been sort of wild, violent, and different.
Look out!
Thank God she didn't fall in.
You mean there's still acid in there?
Destroys everything with hair and flesh. Just leaves the bones. My, it's dry and dusty down here.
Well, there's a cure for that upstairs. Come on.
How'd you get invited to this party? No. Oh, go on. I mean, what'd he tell you?
Mr. Lawrence said everybody'd get $10,000.
But he didn't say anything about being locked in.
No.
He just made a deal with me on the phone, but nothing about having to stay.
Aren't you going to stay?
If I don't, I lose $10,000.
I'm going to stay, too. $10,000.
Yeah. You believe in ghosts?
I don't know.
Well, I agree with what that doc says. You can spook yourself. I've done it in planes. Seen things that weren't really there. Or were they? What are you going to do with your $10,000? If we get it.
What do you mean, if we get it? Won't he pay us if we stay?
Ah, sure he will. 10,000 is no more to him than a nickel is to us.
We were in an automobile accident. Now I'm the only one in the family who can make any money.
Boy, I've never seen so many doors. Closet. Bottles.
Does it go anywhere? Lance! Lance!
Please, come on. Did she say Lance is gone? Gone where?
We'll have to break it down. It's locked.
Locked?
right?
Nothing that money won't cure. I must have bumped my head.
And the only way you could bump your head in here is to run head on into the wall. You didn't do that, did you? Let's get a bandage on that.
I wonder why they didn't kill him.
Who?
He didn't bump his head. They hit him.
They?
Nora, when you came in, you said something about a ghost.
There was something.
What did it look like?
Well, it was wearing a black thing that went all the way to the floor.
Weren't you a little frightened at the time?
Well, yes.
That, Mr. Loren, is hysteria.
Well, then, Doctor, how do you explain what happened to Lance? Was that hysteria, too?
You better get that checked in a day or so.
Thanks, Doc. Wait for me in the hall.
The ghosts are coming closer, Mr. Loren.
You really believe in your pet ghost, don't you, Pritchard?
Before the night's over, you will, too.
Would you like a drink, Lance?
No, thanks.
I'd like one. Scotch and. Mr. Loren, are you really going to pay anyone who stays all night?
Certainly. $10,000.
Will there be much red tape or delay?
You in a hurry, dear?
Frankly, yes. Or frantically.
There you are, my dear.
Someone or something was in here when I came in. But where? And if the door was locked, how did it get out? What you saw might have been a ghost, Nora, but what was in here with me was no ghost.
I don't know. I was so scared.
Does that sound different to you?
Yes.
Three, 6, 9, 12. 12 feet. Three, 6. Now, I'm going to knock on the other wall. When you hear me, you knock on this wall. Tap lower down. Where'd it come from?
From in here.
What if it ran out of here? I'd have seen it.
Lance, it doesn't run. It just floats.
Yeah, but why didn't I see it?
You don't believe me.
Well, how can I?
I'm Annabelle Lauren. You must be Miss Manning. I realize this is a very unusual and I'm afraid very dull party. Wouldn't you like to freshen up? This is your room. Depressing, isn't it?
I doubt if I'll spend much time here.
It's going to rain. Perfect atmosphere for my husband's party. Why did you come here?
He said he'd give me $10,000.
Why did he pick you?
I don't know. My supervisor just came and said I'd been invited.
How long have you known my husband?
I just met him tonight.
So? Why you? What were you doing wandering around by yourself?
Well, I was in the cellar with Lance, Mr. Schroeder, and I just left, that's all.
Don't do it again. Don't go anywhere in this house by yourself. Now fix your face and I'll come by for you in a few minutes.
But
You're in danger. We all are.
But who?
I hope for your sake you never find out. I'm Annabelle Lauren. Were you looking for something?
Not exactly.
Are you the doctor?
No, I'm Lance Schroeder.
The pilot. You've hurt yourself.
Oh, it's just a bump on the head. Which is my room?
I believe this is it.
Thank you, Mrs. Lauren.
Annabelle Lance. You were with the young girl in the cellar. Why was she so upset?
Was she?
And you don't look like the type to go around bumping his head. What really happened, Lance?
Well, Nora thought she saw a ghost, but I didn't see anything.
She was just frightened then.
And mad at me, I think. I kidded her about it.
I wouldn't joke about anything else that happens here tonight.
Now, don't tell me you're taking all this seriously.
Aren't you?
Well, I'd like to find out what hit me.
Lance. If I need help, may I count on you?
Yeah, sure, I guess so. Look, what's going on here anyway? I mean, what is with this party bit?
This is no party. He's planning something.
Your husband?
I wish I knew what it was.
Must be pretty big if he's going to lay out 50,000.
The money doesn't mean anything. He has a reason for getting us all up here to this dreadful old house.
Well, what for? He doesn't even know us.
Maybe that's exactly why you're here.
Well, what can he get away with?
Oh, he thinks that big money like his can get away with anything. You know, of course, that I'm his fourth wife. The first simply disappeared. The other two died. Lance, I don't want to join them.
You mean he,
Oh, his doctor said they died of heart attacks. 2 girls in their 20s.
Well, what can he do?
My husband is sometimes insane with jealousy. Nothing matters to him then. Please be careful.
Would he hurt you?
He would kill me if he could.
Annabelle, you're missing all the fun. Nora Manning was almost killed by a falling chandelier. The pilot bashed his head in.
Is he badly hurt?
The Saturnine psychiatrist bandaged him up. Don't you want to go and console him, as you do most men, in your fashion?
You're so clever, Frederick.
Yes, I lie awake nights wondering why I married you. was rather a mistake.
You didn't marry me, dear. I married you. Unpleasant, but no mistake.
Hurry up.
Frederick, for the last time, I'm not going to your party.
And for the last time, it's not my party, but yours. And you are going.
I am not.
You ready, dear?
No.
Are you ready, dear?
Yes, damn you.
Would you adore me as much if I were poor? No. All you want to be is a lovely widow. It's almost time to lock up the house. And then your party will really begin. I wonder how it'll end. It's close to midnight, Lance.
Okay. I'll be down in a minute.
Who is it?
Your host, my dear. It's almost midnight, Nora. We're all going to get together down in the living room.
All right, Mr. Lloyd. I'll be right down.
Come with us. Come with us before he kills you. Where's Nora? Miss Manning.
I don't want to stay here.
Nora, what happened? That's Jonas Slides and his wife. They've been caretakers here for years. She's blind, you know.
I'm not going to stay here.
Well, Doctor, it looks like we have a real case of hysteria on our hands.
I think she's just a little upset, not hysterical.
Good evening.
Hello, my dear. This is my wife. These are our guests. Ruth Bridges, Dr. Trent. You know Watson Pritchard, of course. Nora Manning, and this is Lance Schroeder.
Get me out of here.
Now, what about the 10,000?
I don't care. He wants to kill me.
Who wants to kill you?
Mr. Lord.
May I have your attention, please? I think you all remember the bargain we made about staying all night. $10,000 apiece. If any of you don't survive, $50,000 will be divided amongst the rest of you. If I should die, you will be paid by my estate. When the door is locked from the outside by the caretakers, we'll all be forced to stay in this house until morning. If any of you decide not to stay, you must leave with the caretakers now. You won't have a chance to change your minds later, because there'll be no way to get out.
I don't want to stay.
Wait.
midnight yet. Who told them they could leave?
They never leave before midnight.
Well, they've gone now. I was going to ask you whether you wanted to stay or not, but it seems that the caretakers have made the decision for you. We're all locked in now.
But I don't want to stay.
And I'm sorry, my dear, but it's too late now.
Darling, haven't you had enough of the silly game? Get some cars up here for these people and let them go home. But pay them first.
This is your party, remember? In spite of my wife's faith in my ability to do the impossible, we will all have to stay in this house until 8 o'clock in the morning. But we have some party favors for you in these little coffins. This is my wife's idea. I must say, I think it's rather dangerous. I suppose you all know how to use one of these things, but in case you don't, you just press down on this lever with your thumb and then pull the trigger. You see, they're loaded.
These are no good against the dead, only the living.
Doctor? Lance? Nora?
Go ahead, take it.
Miss Bridges? And here's yours, dear.
I don't need it.
It was your idea. Who knows, you may want to use it on me before this night is over.
Throw these guns away. They won't do you any good.
I agree with Pritchard on that point, although not for the same reason.
Dr. Trent, don't you approve of our little party favors?
Suppose Nora had had a gun when she mistook the blind woman for a ghost.
I don't think anyone else is going to walk around in total darkness.
Oh, I'm sure we're not going to go running around the house shooting each other, aren't you?
Who knows? Fear makes people do amazing things.
Mr. Pritchard, you said your sister-in-law killed a man and a woman here and cut them up? You said they found hands and feet, but they never found any heads. Would you like to see one of those heads? Would you all like to see one of those heads? Well then, just follow me.
Darling, I really don't need this.
Just go look in my suitcase. Just go look. But it was in there. A woman's head.
Nora, I think you're a little upset. Would you care for a sedative?
Get out! Get out, all of you! All of you, get out of here and leave me alone! Just get out of here!
You think it's all right to leave her by herself, Doctor?
I wish she'd taken the sedative.
Well, what do you suppose she thought she saw?
They're closing in on her.
Look, Doc, I think somebody ought to stay with her.
There could be 1,000,000 people around her. But if they wanted her, they'd get her.
What if he's right?
He's too drunk to know what he's talking about.
I wonder. I'll join you in a minute.
Do you think it would do any good if you went in and talked to her?
Well, do you think there really was a head in her suitcase?
I don't know.
A thing like that would put me right over the edge.
But would you sort of stay up here, I mean, in case she needs help?
All right. I'll be in my room. Just call it.
Thanks.
Are you sure there are only 7 people in this house?
Positive, except for the ghosts.
I don't believe in ghosts, nor in frightening women. In Nora's case, it's gone far enough. Perhaps too far.
What do you suggest we do about it, Doctor?
Don't frighten her anymore.
Nora? 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 Nora! Nora! What do you know about this?
They've taken her. In a little while, she'll be one of them.
Where's Nora? Where is she?
It's too late. It's too late. You'll never find her again.
Pritchard, if you know where she is, you better tell me now.
She's gone. She's gone with them. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Nora.
Let her down.
Nora?
She's dead, Mr. Lauren. Your wife hanged herself.
Suicide.
Nora,
Hide me, please, hide me.
what's the matter?
Hide me. He tried to kill me. He grabbed me and choked me and put me in that room. And then he went away and left me.
Who?
He thought I was dead.
Who?
Mr. Lord.
Are you sure about this?
I don't know. It was dark, but it must have been him.
Has anybody seen you since he left you?
I heard some people in that room, but I went by and nobody saw me.
Mrs. Lauren is dead.
But how?
Lauren said she committed suicide, but I think somebody killed her.
Him?
sure you've come to the same conclusion I have.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, let's all have a meeting, discuss what to do. The living room?
Okay, in a minute. I've got to go downstairs. Now, you lock yourself in here and don't let anybody know you're here. If he thinks you're dead, he won't come here. And I'll get back as soon as I can. You'll be all right. And if you have to, you use it. So beautiful. So greedy. So cold. What are you doing in here?
Wait. Don't wait.
What do you mean coming in here?
I didn't want them to take her away.
You're drunk.
They will if you don't watch her.
You're drunk. All right, out with it, Bridget. Why did you come into this room?
I'm the only one who understands.
Understands what?
Your wife isn't there anymore. She's already joined them.
Look, Bridget, I've had enough of your spook talk. Get out, you sot, and don't come back into this room again.
Where's what's-her-name? Nora.
I didn't disturb her since I don't think this concerns her.
No, you're right.
Mr. Loren, isn't there some way we can get out of this house now?
No, none at all.
We could try breaking out.
The only door to the outside is made of steel. The bars of the windows are set in solid stone. We gotta stay.
I'm not afraid of your ghosts, Bridget. But I am afraid. When we came here a few hours ago, the only thing we had in common was the $10,000 we'd get. Now, however, we share something else. The death of Mrs. Loren. So far tonight, one of us was almost killed by a falling chandelier. One of us was mysteriously slugged. One of us has been driven to the brink of absolute hysteria, and one of us is dead. Were these accidents? Suicide? And we must stay here for 6 more hours.
6 hours? 6 of us. Time enough.
Who will be next? How will it happen?
Let me ask you a question, Doctor. You were the first one to see my wife there. Did you also see anything that she could have climbed up on and then jumped?
No.
Did any of you? There was nothing. How then did she get up there so high?
Exactly, Mr. Loren. How? She couldn't have pulled herself up there. She couldn't have dropped from the ceiling. Do you think your wife killed herself?
No. She was murdered by one of you.
Or you, Mr. Loren. To deliberately kill someone, you must have a reason.
We were all strangers to your wife. Only you had a motive for murder.
What husband hasn't at some time wanted to kill his wife? What husband hasn't had 1,000 opportunities to do it in such a way so that he'd never be suspected? I'm not such a fool as to hang my wife from a ceiling by a rope.
The fact remains that you, or one of us, murdered Mrs. Lauren. And that's a matter for the police.
So how do we get the police?
That's my point. We can't until morning. What began as a silly party given by an eccentric has now involved us all in murder.
For once, Pritchard may be right. If another murder's in the works, let's stop it now.
Another murder.
Why not? Maybe one of us saw too much.
Why should even a millionaire want to give each of us $10,000 to spend one night in a gloomy old house? To see some ghosts, have a party? No.
Have you finished trying me, Doctor? And is the verdict guilty of murder?
Oh, this isn't getting us anywhere. Somebody killed Mrs. Lauren. We know that. One of us is guilty and the rest of us are innocent. Okay. Now, what we have to do for the next 6 hours is protect ourselves from each other.
You really think?
I don't think anything. I just know that I'm going to my room. And if anybody comes in, I'll shoot him. Or her.
And if we all stay in our rooms, we'll be safe. Because the innocent will have no reason to leave his room. And the guilty will admit his guilt if he or she does.
And we all have guns.
And we're all agreed?
Oh, I wish this night were over.
Rooms? Guns? I tell you, it doesn't make any difference. They aren't through with us yet. What's the use of saying goodnight?
Good night.
Good night, Doctor.
have all gone to their rooms and locked themselves in.
Lance, I've been thinking. It was so dark down there. Maybe it wasn't Mr. Lord.
It was him, all right. He tried to kill you, and he did kill his wife.
How can you be so sure?
She tried to warn me, ask me to help her. The doc thinks he's going to try and kill one of us. Now, there must be a way out of this place, and I'm going to find it and get the police before he does.
I'm going with you.
Well, if he finds out you're alive... No, Nora. You're safer here than any place else. Now, just lock yourself in and keep quiet. If I find a way out, I'll come back and get you.
An admission of guilt, Doctor?
Certainly not. There's either somebody else in this house or one of us has left his room. Did you hear anything?
Organ music?
That, and someone walking.
You got yours? Ready?
You look downstairs, and I'll look up here.
Why not together?
There may be only minutes, seconds left of someone's life. Why waste time? It's almost over, darling. Every detail was perfect.
What's happening?
We've done it. A perfect crime. Beautiful.
Has she killed him?
Not yet, but she will.
Get me out of this hanging harness. What's taking that girl so long? What time is it?
At first, I couldn't get Nora to want to protect herself with a gun. But after you appeared at the window, everything began to work just as we had planned. You were wonderful. Just the touch that finally drove her into complete hysteria.
It'll be worth all of our planning, darling. Where's Nora now? What's happening?
On her way to the cellar. So scared she'll shoot the first thing that moves.
And Frederick?
On his way to the cellar, too.
David, are you sure none of them will suspect us?
Of what? An hysterical girl accidentally shoots somebody? Who would suspect that we planned it that way, that we drove her to it?
What about my suicide?
But just a ghost party gag. We'll claim it was a dummy since I'm the only one who touched you.
And the caretakers?
Well, they had no idea what they were really doing.
What about Nora? She's not stupid, you know.
Darling, believe me, everything we planned is working perfectly. Nora is sure Frederick murdered you. She thinks Frederick attacked her in the cellar, not me. And now Nora's almost out of her mind with fear. The heads, the music, you're hanging. I tell you, when Frederick walks in there, she'll shoot him.
It's taking too long. David, you ought to be there.
When you hear the shot, come down to the cellar.
David? David?
At last you've got it all. Everything I have. Even my life. But you're not going to live to enjoy it. Come with me, murderess. Come with me. You two planned was indeed perfect. Only the victim is alive and the murderers are not. It's a pity you didn't know when you started your game of murder that I was playing too.
There must be some way to get in here.
Oh, it's right along here, somewhere.
Lance! I've shot Mr. Loren. He's down in the wine cellar.
Alive?
I don't think so. It's him. He's alive.
You didn't shoot anyone, my dear. I loaded your gun with blanks. I can tell you all now. Trent and my wife were planning to kill me. They failed. Trent tried to throw me in the vat. My wife stumbled and fell. I'm ready for justice to decide if I'm innocent or guilty.
Now they're 9. There'll be more, many more. They're coming for me now. And then they'll come for you.
Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. Oh, hey, thanks. Bloody Mary. Mmm, so delicious. Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Make certain to hit the like and subscribe button and ring that notification bell to be among the first to receive updates on videos like this and many others. So, for the new moon, I redecorated my seance room, which is where we are right now. You may notice a few little differences. You know, the portrait of me is no longer right here. In fact, there are mirrors. Mirrors everywhere. I don't think that's a rhyme, but there are mirrors literally everywhere. There's a mirror here, and there's a mirror there, and one there, and one here, and one here. And today, I want to talk about portals. So, is every mirror a portal? No, not necessarily. Is every closet a portal? Definitely not. Is your television or your phone that you're watching me on right now a portal? Yes, 100% every time. Because portals are, it's an opening from one place to another. Now, a lot of people might balk at having so many mirrors in one place. Some might even call me vain. And I would say, me? Vain? Really? Of all of the 7 deadly sins, vain? Never. But really, they say that you're not supposed to have mirrors reflecting into mirrors because it can open up a portal, and energies are said to they're believed to go from one place to another, and they can bounce from mirror to mirror. So when you have these endless reflections, who knows what you may summon. I do find it strange, however, that there are not very many stories of haunted dance studios. So if you know of one, maybe you can leave one in the comments section, because mirrors reflecting mirrors, why not? Now, for me though, it really is, I'm not afraid. I am not afraid. I actually put the mirrors in here to help enhance the spirit, to allow it to be more portals so that I could do my job a lot easier. Now, not every spirit who comes through is a negative spirit. There are perhaps negative spirits who can, but my friend Lauren Morgan Richards is a renowned author. He is not without some psychic ability, and he is also somewhat of a medium himself, and he has in his possession an antique mirror that he will take pictures of it, and it looks somewhat like an oil lamp, and it's very fluid, and there are images of people who are not corporeal. They're not in the room, but clear as day, you can see these people. And so we have this back and forth exchange. And one time he sent me this one. He says, who is this? It kind of looks like Marilyn Monroe. And I said, no, I know this person. This is actually Jane Mansfield, which is special to me because not only was she a beautiful, glamorous actress, but she was an avowed Satanist, whatever an avowed Satanist is. But anyway, so we had this conversation, and from the images I was getting from his mirror, I went on Google and I found these images of Jane Mansfield, which matched the images of the mirror. And it just so happens that it was on the anniversary of her death. So, you know, can they come through a mirror? Absolutely. Marilyn Monroe herself is said to haunt a mirror at the Hollywood, no, what is it called? It's the Roosevelt Hotel in Hollywood. And she loved to stay there. She loved to be there. So the mirror that was in her cabana still hangs in this hotel in Hollywood, and her reflection is said to appear through the mirror. Now, personally, I have never seen it. You know what else I've never seen in a mirror? Maybe you know this one. Maybe when you went to a slumber party as a kid and you wanted to prove how brave you were. This was just before you called your mom and said, I want to come home. But remember how you'd go to these sleepovers and they would say, I dare you, go in the bathroom in there and look in the mirror and call upon Bloody Mary. And oh, you were terrified. You were so terrified to do so. And you went into that mirror and you stood in the dark, and you didn't want them to think you were a wimp. So you looked in the mirror and you said, Bloody Mary. And you're thinking, don't show up, don't show up, don't show up, don't show up. And you were relieved when she didn't show up. And then you would laugh about it with your friends. You'd go back and, oh, yes, I saw Bloody Mary. Well, that comes from, it's a mixed message. You know, you could sometimes go in and say, Mary Worth, I believe in you. Sometimes she's called Mary Worth. Sometimes she's Mary Worthington. Sometimes it's associated with Bloody Mary, from the one who killed the Protestants. But it's all conjecture. Who knows? A rose by any other name could still crawl through your mirror and drag you into another region. Maybe or maybe not. I don't know. But not all spirits that come through mirrors are evil. And, I personally would be very careful, however, of finding mirrors at thrift stores or antique stores, because magicians oftentimes will use them. People who are, if you are in the Latin culture, you would be a bruja or a brujo, but someone who practices some sort of dark magic can use these mirrors as portals, and you want to make certain that you are protected. Also, in the Victorian times, if you had someone who died in your house, who was not a witch, but died in your house, you wanted to make certain that you covered all of your mirrors, because you wouldn't want spirits of the recently deceased to find themselves trapped in the house. Because if they see themselves in the mirror, then their spirit is there forever, according to Victorians. Now, mind you, I don't know how a dead person is supposed to see themselves in a mirror, but the Victorians clearly had that thought out. So be very careful about letting your dead relatives see their reflection. Also, when you are sleeping, make certain that you cover your mirrors in some way. Because according to Feng Shui, according to energy work, if you're going into your bedroom or your bedchamber to sleep, the last thing you want to do is be awake. And if you have a mirror, you're reflecting the opposite of what you want. Your phones that you are watching me on, as much as I love the clicks, the views, your phone is a portal, and you have it right there next to you, and if you're an insomniac and you're watching me right now, thank you, go to bed. Because, you have a portal next to you. Phones also do put off an electromagnetic field, which some people are very sensitive to. So it would be a better idea if you charged your phone on the other side of the room, just so that you would not be tempted to get up and scroll through social media. Though, if you do want to be up and you do want to watch something, I couldn't think of a better show in the world to watch than The Gentleman Psychic. And now, here's a word from my friend the devil and Asmodeus.
Oh, hello, Asmodeus. I've just been sitting here reflecting. I tell some really lousy jokes. Reflecting. Get it? 'Cause mirrors, portals, reflecting. Shining mirrors. That's a job I could really see myself in. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, back to you in the studio.
Magic mirror on the wall. Who's your favorite YouTuber of them all? I am fair, your queen. The gentleman psychic is really clean.
And welcome back to the Wicked Virtual Film Festival. Wow, that photo, Richard-Lael Lillard, that's pretty amazing. Is that you as Vincent Price?
That was me as Vincent Price. So a couple of years ago, oh goodness, maybe more than that, maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, a friend of mine was doing a zombie walk in Long Beach, somewhere here in Southern California. And he says, hey, can you do Vincent Price? And I went, well, I've never done it before, but why not? I'm certain I could. So we walked around this zombie fest, and then I emceed the show as Vincent Price. And people went, oh, you're Vincent Price. That's who you're supposed to be.
It's pretty amazing. And so we just watched the classic House on Haunted Hill, and you're reporting from your very haunted place in Pasadena, California.
That is right. It is not on a haunted hill, unfortunately, but the house on the haunted hill is in Los Angeles. So it's a little far from here, but it's in Los Angeles.
So for people that don't know, you've been on Ghost Adventures. Your home was actually featured in an episode, the Pasadena Ritual House on Ghost Adventures. How did you get involved with Ghost Adventures?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. So I've always been haunted. I've always had haunted items. Like you, I channel spirits and I communicate with the dead. And I put it sort of on the back burner. I moved to LA a decade ago to pursue acting because I thought that was where someone who could channel spirits should be. Because I can channel, oh, you want this dead person? Okay, I'll channel them and then I will let them go through me and I call it acting, but it's not. I was channeling spirits.
Right.
Well, things were going awry, things were going strange, and I got kind of complacent and kind of comfortable. And the universe said, oh yeah, you're comfortable? Watch this. So it shook me up, and I went, okay, well, I have to rethink these things. I have to figure out what I'm going to do. Oh, you know what? I'm going to post on social media about my abilities and just see what my friends think, see what they do. So I said, by the way, I am a psychic and a medium. I always have been, and I'm now offering readings. So it became really popular. And an acquaintance of mine says, oh, he says, you know, I'm going to start doing this podcast. It's about paranormal things. Why don't you come on the podcast? And then from that podcast, he introduced me to Patty Negri. Oh. And we were instantly friends. She's the good witch. I'm the evil Satanist. But we both actually come from the same place. So she and I both work on a similar level. We can work with anybody, any energies, any religious background. We can work with anybody. At any rate, so Pasadena Ritual House came about because the Ghost Adventures had asked Patty. They said, Patty, we kind of want something that's a little bit higher end, someplace that's nice, someplace that's definitely haunted, but we want something that is visually appealing, that is interesting, that is unique. And Patty goes, I know exactly who you're going to love. You're going to love him. I've done seances at his house. You're going to love him. So they sent out their sort of people, and they went, okay, yep, you're here. You're on the show. And that's the rest is history.
Richard-Lael, so you're known as the gentleman psychic, and so you know, how has that come about? I know that what I get from you is that that's kind of been your persona for most of your life, really. Well,
I've always been slightly strange, I guess is the correct wording for it. I had a love and a fascination of the 18th, 19th, and early 20th centuries. And you can't really walk around with a powdered wig because, for one, it takes a lot of work. And so I went from the powdered wig to more of the mid to late 19th century. And even in high school, that was just what I did. Well, after I started offering services to my friends online, then there was a review that one of my friends left, and she says, he is a gentleman and a psychic. And I went, Yes, that's exactly everything I want to convey. I want someone who I want to be that someone who is kind and considerate and gentlemanly, and also I have no problems telling the truth. I will find a way. If she's not right for you, I will tell you she's not right for you.
And that, I'll tell you, like, as that's hard to find, because when we get psychic readings, or when I give psychic readings, they want to hear what they want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I like going to someone who's going to tell me like it is.
Absolutely. Well, when I use my decks, I use a couple different ones. I use my oracle cards, they're Lenormand, and I use a deck they're called Misfortune cards by Fan Todd, designed by Edward Gorey.
Ooh.
So instead of telling your fortune, they tell your misfortunes. Wow. And people go, oh no, I don't want to know anything about bad things. I don't want to know bad things. And I tell people this: if you are driving along down the highway and you're doing 80 miles an hour, and in that lane happens to be a pothole, a big one, if you know about it, you can slow down, you can change lanes, you can move around it. If you don't know about it and you're doing 80 miles an hour, at least you could throw your car end out of alignment, but you could end up by blowing a tire, or you could cause a car accident. So there's any number of things that could happen that if you would have known, you could have slowed down and changed lanes. And that's the way that bad news is.
And when you were on Ghost Adventures in the Pasadena Ritual House episode, they did, of course, it was at your home. And what I was picking up is not necessarily what they were conveying on camera. You and I have talked about this off camera, but I do think that the knocking that we heard was possibly knockers. And why would you have knockers, like a Cornish knocker, in your home?
Well, you know what? It's probably because of maybe ancestry, but then also I have a painting of Gilbert Innes of Stowe, Scotland, in my chamber, and I don't know how this portrait came all the way from Scotland to here, but it's his original portrait. He had 52 illegitimate children, and he founded the Bank of Scotland, the wealthiest commoner of his day.
I just had a premonition. So the Innes house is where the house on Haunted Hill was shot.
Oh, that's right.
That is so weird. So that same last name, so that there's a connection here.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So
I missed that point, but you are absolutely right.
And so that's interesting. So getting back to the Ghost Adventures episode, of course they're like, oh, it's demons. And why do paranormal investigators or TV investigators go there? Like, why does it always have to be a demon?
Well, it's easier, I feel, for people. First of all, I love Zach, and I love the
group. I do too.
They were very professional. But I think it's easier for people to explain something if it's a demon. I think because in the Western psyche, we go, oh, demon, that means knockings and bad things, bangings and shakings, and as opposed to the very Eastern philosophy, where sometimes demons can be malevolent, they can be benevolent, they can even be neutral. There's a demon in Japan, I can't remember the demon's name, but its entire goal, its entire purpose is to wash a certain leaf in a river. That's all it does. There's another demon who's the shape of a leg, and it kicks passersby. That's all it does. So, demon it's a very westernized thought. This is evil, this is bad, this is scary. But really, demons are just interdimensional beings.
And so getting to what you think is at your home, and I think that there's stuff that's connected to a lot of the artifacts there. Sure. Also, you're haunted as well. You have your spirits as well, kind of swirling around you. Mm-hmm. And what's going on at this location? So is it from the ritual? Is it from the seances?
Well, I've always been haunted. I've always had some strange things happening. I mean, it's a long story, but strange things happening. I think what was really funny here is they had asked me, can you do a seance for us? And I went, okay, sure, yeah, I can do that. So I go ahead and start getting things out for the seance. They go into the parlor, they close the doors. I can still hear them because it's right over there. So they close the doors and they're talking, and I pour a little bit of rum as an offering. And this room, by the way, it's an octagonal shaped room. And then it draws an energy. It's from the heavens and from the earth, and it really draws the energy in. So I'm sitting here and I'm meditating on this seance, and the rum in the glass starts to do this sort of thing. It sort of starts to shake. And as the rum starts to shake, they hear a voice on the EVP that says, take a drink. And Zach says, take a drink of what? Of blood? And then when we did the seance, he comes in and I said, and now we take a drink. And he goes, oh,
that's a connection there.
Well, I knew that he would get it when it was said, because I was thinking, Zach, you're so sweet. But no, it's not a drink of blood. It's a drink of rum.
It was funny on the show, like when they were like, it's a demon, or especially, and also when Aaron's name was like kind of spelled out,
yes, Aaron Goodwin. I haven't watched the show in nearly a decade.
Yeah,
I don't even have a television. So when I had seen them, I knew more of Zach, but I had seen them around. And then the board we asked who's here, who would you like to speak to? And it says God. And then it goes. It was probably Godwin, but it just stayed there. Godwin, and Aaron goes, my name is Goodwin. Could it be me? Oh, yeah, let's see. Yes, it is definitely wanting to talk to you.
Richard-Lael, I think you like officially scared him because he was terrified when in that episode.
He was. But you know the good thing, though, is that he sat down at the board here in my seance room, right here in this room. He sits down and he says, I have not played with the Ouija board. I won't do it again. But he says, here I feel really safe. I feel safe here. It feels like I'm being inducted into like a gentleman's club, like a private space. I feel very safe.
Yeah, I definitely get that too. You have it's very guarded. You have a lot of sentinel protection spirits in your space around you as well. I'm not getting evil at all.
No.
And that's a misconception.
Well, at the time, I will tell you, the person that was in the show with me is no more. Right. And part of the problem was that I didn't like that person, and I was every day doing things. So maybe what they were picking up on was her. I haven't said that anywhere else.
So we got breaking news. Richard-Lael was sending evil entities to chase his roommate away. But I will, from experience, I mean, I do think that it's hard to control entities or the negative stuff. Like, when you go there, like, is it something that are you cautious about going there?
Usually I'm pretty good about it. I just did a video, 2 months ago maybe, where I visited Satan's Castle. It's called Satan's Castle up in I can't remember, up in the mountains here in California, about an hour and a half away. And weird things had happened, weird, strange things all the way through. And I was going to go there to sort of debunk, okay, haha, Satan's Castle, it's an octagonal shaped tower, woohoo, okay. Well, it turns out that in my videos, I don't have, my boys are over there, but I have my puppets. And one is my friend the devil, and one is Asmodeus. Of course, Asmodeus is a demon. But they had the recordings, they had the puppets up, and every time that I would speak or they would speak, my phone started warbling and hissing and growling, and it sounded like, it was very strange. And then I had some car trouble on the way back. It was really peculiar. And then the next day I did a seance online with Patty, and Patty goes, okay, she said, I'm feeling there's something very old. It was an online seance. So there's something very old, something very ancient. And I keep getting something like Solomon, but it can't be Solomon. I don't know what this is. Well, it turns out, I said, Patty, right up here, I have a lithograph of King Solomon from the 19th century. And it is one of the Goetic mountain demons. So it is an old ancient energy that followed me home. And I had to do a little bit of calming down of the spirit and making certain it was okay. But usually I have no fear going into these places.
Now, do you set boundaries when it comes to like the darker entities? How do you do that?
Well, I do set boundaries. I think it's very important. People in this realm will come into my home and they stay for 5, 6, 7, 10 hours sometimes. They just stay and they feel comfortable and they feel relaxed and it's this beautiful spirit. But it's the same thing that you do with your friends. When you're contacting the outside world, when you're going beyond the veil, you invite certain kinds of people into your world. You don't just open the door and say, come in, everybody, anybody, whoever wants to come in. My silverware's in there, my jewelry's in there. You wouldn't do that because some people would have your mal intentions. So when I invite the spirits, I say, spirits of kindness, spirits of mercy, spirits of joy, spirits of love, spirits of joy, spirits of laughter, spirits of peace, ancient spirits, young spirits, new spirits. I welcome you here. But if you are going to behave, you can stay. But if you act inappropriately as my guest, I will ask you to leave.
That's good to set those boundaries. I'll tell you, when I first started doing this, I had basically what was a possession. It was an entity manipulation that attached itself to me. It almost killed me. But from those things, you actually learn from your mistakes, I guess, and then and also you learn how to set boundaries with the entities and the spirits. I think I was really terrified of the darker entities. I'm less terrified now as I was, say, like 5 years ago.
Sure.
But as I hear like growling coming from your place, it's like, ah.
Well, they do growl once in a while, but they're not so bad. They're not so bad.
So Richard-Lael, when I first actually started, so I did see you, of course, on Ghost Adventures, but then I was watching your online videos. So tell us about those videos. Some of them, like you did one on the Salem witch trials, and I have to say it's fantastic. You did an awesome job with it.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I started because I didn't have, when Ghost Adventures came out, and I should have had things on there about my psychic abilities and things, but I just had I hadn't really done anything on my YouTube for goodness, a decade or better. And people started coming in and looking for me after the show. And they went, oh, yeah, who is this weird Dracula looking dude? That was, to quote them. And I went, I really need to actually start using this platform. So it was also in conjunction with all of the, with all of these sort of right-wing conspiracy theory websites that point fingers at and blame certain groups of people. And so I got a huge blunt of that, like the blunt force of that. So I started recording just to sort of say, okay, this is who I am. I don't sacrifice babies. I don't do these things that whatever you think that Satanists do, I don't do that. Usually. I mean, unless you think, Satanists live in Victorian houses and wear a suit. But yeah, then I did the Salem witch trials. So I try to keep topics sort of history of witchcraft, history of Satanism, history of the occult. And I love the idea of the Salem witch trials. I love the history behind it because it can really show that group mindset, that herd mentality that can affect people, that can sweep people into power and can cause harm to other people. The satanic panic is from the 1980s is rooted in the Salem witch trials. And now we have people marching down Hollywood Boulevard screaming that Hollywood elites are satanic, are in some sort of satanic cabal and sacrificing babies. So
I'm a historian, and I've written 2 books on the Salem witch trials, but I've also write about the ghosts as well. And what turns out, I'm actually related to the bad guy. So I'm related to the Putnam family. And in the video, you kind of talk about the sort of the afflicted girls and the theatrics of the afflicted girls. Well, that's my cousin. One of them, Ann Putnam Jr.
That's so funny.
I know. And I do, like, my passion, I totally agree with you, Richard-Lael. I think that history does repeat itself, and people like you and I, it's our responsibility to point that out. It's like, hey, this is happening again. And I do think that the Salem witch trials does serve as an archetype of some sort, that trope that repeats itself over and over again. And if we don't watch ourselves, which is happening now, I mean,
absolutely.
With for example, with COVID, my Asian American friends, when a certain president was saying, hey, it's the Wuhan flu or whatever he called it, my Asian American friends were getting attacked. So we have to be careful at the fingers that we point and who we point them toward.
Absolutely. Well, and that goes into why I am a Satanist, is because in one of the tenets of Satanism is taking responsibility for yourself.
Right.
So allowing people to have their beliefs, their thoughts, their views, which is why I can work with anybody, but allowing people to have their views, their thoughts, their ideas, as long as they're not trying to inflict those or enforce those upon people, on other groups of people. So believe whatever you want to believe in any God or no God and multiple gods. I don't care, until you start trying to tell people that you can't do that you can't learn, you can't grow, you can't think for yourself. That's where I have issues.
And so when it comes to the Salem witch trials specifically, any standout, any people that you kind of gravitate toward as far as the victim?
Well, I love Tituba. I love her. I love her so much because my thinking, and for those of you who don't know who Tituba was, she was the black maid, and by maid, she was, unfortunately, it was the 1600s, she was in slavery.
Yes.
It's sort of polished to call her a maid, but she was not a maid. She was a slave, and she was tired. And then she had raised these girls. She had fed them. She had clothed them. She had kissed their boo-boos and wiped away their tears. She did all of this, and then they turn to her, and they say that she's the witch. She's the witch. So she says, fine. What are you going to do? Kill me? Yeah, fine. I'm a witch. I summoned the devil. Okay, what do you want? Kill me. Get me. I'm done with this. And then they didn't end up by doing that. They didn't execute her.
Well, she was kind of smart, actually. I mean, if you look at, she was the first to be in prison and the last to be let out of the dungeon, which is interesting. And like you said in the video, she was neither a witch nor was she a Christian. She was something in between, and that, of course, she was categorized as a witch because of her different beliefs. Exactly,
and it swept that little village of Salem.
It really did, and the hysteria, and it's something that we as in this area of New England have tried to sort of sweep it under the rug, put it in the closet, forget about it. But people like you and I, it's important for us to talk about it over and over again because it repeats itself.
It definitely repeats itself. It goes into the satanic panic of the 1980s, where 80s and 90s, where everything was satanic. Lives were ruined. Oh, these people are in a satanic cabal, and they're daycare teachers, and they're corrupting the minds of your children, and even Halloween candy is evil, and the devil is lurking everywhere, and there's backmasking, and all of these things are evil, and they're out to get you. Of course, that's in the 80s. That was really sort of the height of the televangelist. So they were from the pulpits preaching this prosperity gospel. But now we fast forward to 40 years later, and now we have prosperity gospel preachers, gospel, who are in high positions in this country, and then from the very top level, we have people who are supporting people like QAnon. And they're affecting lives when people are going into a pizza shop that doesn't have a basement because they think that there is a basement and that it's some sort of ring by high-ranking Democratic Satanists. I mean, come on.
So Richard-Lael, if people want to reach out to you, do you have a website?
I certainly do. You can find me on thegentlemanpsychic.com. You can find me under The Gentleman Psychic on Facebook, on Instagram, and maybe on Twitter. If not, you can find, I'm easily found. Richard-Lael Lillard. L-A-E-L is the end of my first name, and Lillard is L-I-L-L-A-R-D.
So Richard-Lael, any closing thoughts?
Yes, actually, pardon me. I know, I don't know if maybe I should not tell you this or not, but I loved meeting you in the dream 15 years or so ago. Maybe you could tell that story a little later on if you like.
Yeah, let's go ahead and tell it now, and we may cut this out of the show. But yeah, so I have been dreaming about Richard-Lael for years. And usually it's at a location that kind of like I need to find out more information. So one location was the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast, and another location was a murder scene. And you were like in the dream, kind of pointing out things, and it was like in a black and white video or movie that was terrifying me. And you said that I scared you as well because I was like Nancy Drew.
Yeah, well, I was living in Vegas at the time, and you had this houndstooth checkered tweed jacket on with leather patches on the sleeves, and there was a knock on my door. I opened the door, and there you are. Yeah, knock, knock. I opened the door, and there you are, and you're looking around, going, I've got to figure this out. I've got to figure it out. I've got to figure it out. I've got to look around. And I went, what is this? And I closed the door.
And kind of to get so. I would call Richard-Lael what we call a dream walker. Mm-hmm. And when I first met you online, I'm like, I'm a Richard-Lael. Are you a dream walker? And you're like, yes, I am. And I'm like, oh, okay, that solves everything. Because when I saw your picture, it was actually on Patty Negri's website. I'm like, I know that man, and I know him from my dreams.
Here am I.
Yeah. Well, Richard-Lael, pleasure talking to you online. Hopefully we'll be able to meet in person very soon. I'm sure we will.
I'm certain of it, my friend.
And I will see you in my dreams.
All right, good sir.
All right, have a good night. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and ghouls, and those who remain undecided. Welcome to the greatest show on Earth. This is a show that has on the main stage religious piety, and over here, lots of distractions. What do you have to have for a show? Well, a show, silly. Number one. And number two, in order to have a real show, you have to have a real audience of children. Wonderful, laughing, screaming, finger-pointing, twisting, gnarling children. And this is a story that begins just like that. The year was 1692. The colonies was known as the New World. Oh yes, this little town, you would have heard of it. But only because of its association with witchcraft. But in those days, Salem, Massachusetts was filled full of Puritans who fled England because of religious persecution. And then they inflicted the same persecution upon others. Funny how that works, isn't it? Well, in this town, there was a minister who had one little girl by the name of Abigail and her cousin Elizabeth. Now, they were just the sweetest little children, sitting in the kitchen next to their maid. Well, let's call it what it was. They had a slave. Her name was Tituba. She was Caribbean. Now, she was not a witch, but she was also not a Christian. We'll come back to that. Put a pin in it, as I like to say. So, these two little girls and their friends, after all of the many years of letting this woman take care of them, tuck them in at night and read them bedtime stories from the Bible and tell of lands far away in the Caribbean, they decided they wanted to have a little revenge on this woman. And why not? Her father's a minister, so she was quite the privileged little girl. Well, as it turns out, not only did they accuse Tituba of witchcraft, they decided too that, that was just not good enough. So they accused someone by the name of Sarah Good. Is that good enough? No, it was not good enough. Because then they accused someone by the name of Sarah Osborne. Now, what did these women have in common? They were all women. They were all on the outside of society. And two of the three were poor, the other was a slave. It was Sarah Good who was with child. She was expecting a baby. Her husband was a day laborer, and she would go around to the houses in town, entreating upon the good Christian neighbors to offer some morsel of food for her unborn child, her husband, and for her 4-year-old daughter, Dorcas. They also accused Sarah Osborne, an elderly woman who was poor, who was strange, who had few teeth in her head. They broke in, they held her down, and they looked for witch marks. Yeah, in those days, if you had any extra markings, it was a sign that the devil was there with you, that you were a concubine to Satan. So, they brought these 3 women to court before the magistrate, and Tituba had it up to here. She went, "You know what? I am tired of these crazy girls. I am tired of taking care of those whiny little brats. Yeah, I'm a witch. What do you think about that? I'm a witch. And you know what else? Those women over here, these other women? Oh yeah, witches too." Yeah, well, she ended up by being sentenced to prison where she lived to tell the tale. But I personally feel that she was really just tired of taking care of those children and ended up by surviving. The other 2 women, whom were poor, were devout Christians, and they entreated the court, "Please, see how good and pious Christians we are. See that we would never offer our souls to the devil." And you know what was met with the girls? The devil! The devil! They were sentenced. It may be noted that Sarah Good's child was born in prison and died there. And then they accused the 4-year-old Dorcas of also being a witch. They brought her before the magistrate, and on fear of death, this little girl, not knowing what else to do, turned against her own mother, Sarah Good. It is said that these girls, one of the ways that they could tell there was a witch was that they had seen a little yellow bird suckling on the finger of one of their accused. Funny how that works out, isn't it? Well, mass hysteria began to boil. It began to boil, and it spread throughout the colonies, and more people were being accused, and more people hearing about Tituba surviving in jail went, "Distractions! Yes, I'm a witch. She's a witch too. Don't look at me, look at them. Don't look at me, look at them. Look, see? I'm a witch, she's a witch." Unfortunately, the governor of Massachusetts found it expedient to set up a court judging witchcraft trials. Oh, it was all fun and games until somebody loses an eye, and then it's just funny. And you know what? Who that eye got plucked out? He stopped it 1 year later when his own wife was accused of witchcraft. And then, that's ridiculous, witches. In the little town of Salem, Massachusetts, there were 20 lives destroyed. One of which, most notably, is a male. Now, most of the time, those accused were of the female sex. They were women. Giles, however, was not, and he was brought before the magistrate, and they said, "Be'st thou a witch?" He refused to answer. And so they thought that they would get a confession out of him, and they put him on the ground at Gallows Hill. They put a board down on his chest, and they would stack these rocks. And when it was a lot of pain and a lot of pressure, they would stop and say, "Confess now, art thou a witch?" In response to such heinous act, Giles only said, "More weight." And they would compile more stones upon his chest, saying, "Art thou a witch?" "More weight," said Giles, refusing to implicate himself in a lie and those people that he considered good Christians. He refused. He became a real martyr. Now you would think that with such heinous acts, such fear that would lead people to destroy themselves, that we as humans would have learned 300 years ago was a long time by mortal standards. However, in the next video, we're going to be talking about something much more recent, the 1980s and the Satanic Panic. And now, a word from my co-host, my friend the devil, and Asmodeus.
Asmodeus, I have a good one. What do you call a witch who eats only sand? A sandwich? No, she's malnourished.
Back to you in the studio.